I like how everybody's kind of pairs. Yeah, but it's kind of sweet. It's a little clicky for my taste, but Raj is whispering about Tina. You're like, yeah, you're like, mm. Yeah. I was thinking when it rained, I was like, I really have a strong urge to be outside, and we'll see if I get vetoed if somebody needs, or if it's too buggy or something. But especially seeing as it looked like it would stop raining in time for class, I'm like, all right, maybe it'll be a little damp, but it hasn't been damp in a long time. I kind of ran out dancing in it, you know, just barefoot in the puddles and like twice today. Really? That's invigorating. Wow. Yeah, so it was raining during my class this morning, and my student, who's this elderly lady, and I just say that because I imagine that she could have some wisdom, or studied somewhere, learned something, or I don't know where it came from, and she just kind of matter of factly said it, but it was this just kind of the kind of rain you can't quite see, but you can feel, and it just was staying that way. And she came into class, and obviously we just said, "Hey, it's raining." Like, you kind of have to say something about it. And she said, "Yeah, Mother Rain." And she kind of said it in a way like that's a phrase, like she meant something by it. So I asked her about it, and she said, "Yeah, this is Mother Rain." And she's like, "The downpour that's maybe painful and sudden is Father, you know." And she's like, "This is like slow and ever present and nurturing and soaks into the ground, And I was like, ah, and I just was flipping that around in my mind all day, like all the different permutations that you know could mean. But I kind of just like the phrase itself, like Mother Rain, and I didn't hear from her about like if it's just what she calls it or in her family, or it's this saying from the Housatonics or something. I don't know where it might have come from, but I really liked it. Like, oh, Mother Rain, like, yeah. It doesn't have that sort of cleansing feel so much as the slow accretion of, you know, the waters. Okay, welcome. It feels weird. I don't have the hat I usually have. I don't have the drink I usually have. It's like it's weird to have a can. So did Tina share with you a little bit about what the class is, or do you want to get a little intro to what we're doing? Yeah. Anybody besides Garrett care to share an intro? He usually jumps in with it.
I'll look around, and then we all look around, and it's quiet, and then I'll be like, well, this is how it is.
Thank you. Thank you. Have we all introduced ourselves? Yeah. Yeah.
What was that one? I forgot.
Second grade. Wow. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, you're a little freer to go. Although if you lived in Scotland, she would come visit. So yeah, that's uh so I thought what I'd do is I'd just um repeat a lesson. It was on my mind when the rain came, and I did this a little bit earlier today. Some of you guys have done this, but maybe if you haven't practiced it, you'll enjoy the review. So we're going to hold the mudra, and kind of easy with this mudra to kind of round and curl over a bit. It's also easy to kind of end up in your shoulders. Uh, with a lot of mudra, it's kind of easy to make a face and kind of have some tension in the face because you're trying to figure it out. So if those things happen, just when you're able, see if you can correct them a bit and offer your body a way back to some kind of softness and alignment. Um, so we're going to do a very similar thing with both hands. It's going to be pretty pretty straightforward. So we're going to have the ring and the pinky touch one another. Yeah, so they're just both extended, and they're going to stay that way. Okay, there you go. And then you're going to turn the palms up with the left hand on top. The left two fingers that we're talking about, these two, are going to lay across the base of the right two fingers, so that I'm ready. I'm laying across right here, and I'm laying across at the base of the ones that are on top instead of way over here somewhere. I'm laying across here. So if we've done that, okay, we should be able to take the middle finger on the right hand, right, and fold it over the top of the two fingers of the left hand that we just kind of were weaving them. Okay. Okay. I can't see your hands, Kristen, but your face tells me you're not sure. So, can I go on? Okay. Yeah, I was just going, but all I could go is by the face. So we're over here now. The middle finger of the other hand is going to touch the tip of the middle finger that we just set there. So they're just touching the sides of the tips, like so. Good. Now, these two fingers are just going to line up with that middle finger on both hands. And then I'm going to draw them back so they're just slightly rounded, like so. Now, if I've done this well, I shouldn't be able to see any light between my pointer finger and my middle finger. If I over round them or pull them back too much, light will come through. I don't want to have the light coming through. Okay. Now I'm going to take the heels of the pinky side of the palm and touch them together. Good. You'll start to see now where your shoulders might get involved once you bring the heels together, like a little bit, maybe even some of this. And then the thumbs are just going to kind of raise the lip of this bowl. So they're going to round a bit and just raise the lip of the bowl. Good. So if we've done this well, we've built a bowl that would hold water, except for that one obvious hole that's on the far side of the bowl. Okay. Is anybody completely stuck, or do you want to rebuild it again just to practice? Or looks like you got it. Okay. So the practice here is to sit in meditation with this mudra. This is a nice one to do in the rain because this will collect the rain. But the idea of this is to be collecting water, pani. It's called the pani mudra. I often think that I learned the word pani when I was in hospice from a guy who spoke Hindi, and he just wanted me to give him some water, which is the simplest thing because that's really his only need. And I was like, oh, I just learned a word. Oh, it's not about that. And he wasn't trying to teach, and he wasn't trying to figure the English out either. He was just saying the natural way that he could. You could see the English erode, whether in access or importance. And he was just speaking Hindi at the end. But I often think kind of how I learn that word in a sort of matter-of-fact way. Pani, P-A-N-I. In China, it's shui, and very, very important to learn to order baikai shui, not just shui, so that you get potable water. So it's not enough to learn the word for water. Baikai shui. So what I like to do with this, although it would work in downpour, whether that's for real or in your mind, but to imagine more of the mother rain, so that the work for me is one of patience and presence to get enough water. So the practice here is just to sit in your posture and feel what collects in the palms, and that the purpose of your actions is to collect water. We could say to collect life. We could say to aid life. We could say to nurture. We could say to slake or to soothe. So just checking in with any tension you've added. You want a nice clarity in the shape so that it would hold water, but for that hole. It may occur to you that no bowl is ever empty. Every bowl has potential. Every bowl is full of the sky or the air or your intention or perhaps water. In a traditional shrine, we might have a few types of water. We might have cleaning water, bathing water, cleansing water. We might have drinking water, the kind you were probably thinking about so far. And we might have scented water, right, with rose petals or something. And two of the waters you would not drink, but they're all important, in the seven altar offerings of these practices. Three are water. Last thing I want to bring to your attention is that the bowl that you've built, that you've held, that you're using to collect has a hole in it, and that hole is far from you, suggesting that the purpose of our actions to collect water is not for the self. It's for somebody else or something else, somewhere else. So the whole of this practice is this kind of devotional practice of aligning the self and the purpose towards another, doing the hard work of building and patience, not for the self. I invite you back whenever you would like. Some of you have practiced that mudra before, yeah? Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna add that lesson next. Yeah. That's all right. No, that's great. No spoilers. That's funny. How did that feel for everybody? Was it interesting or difficult or?
It's a little harder. I found that it's a little more strain on my back than usual.
Mm-hmm.
I love when you added that the whole is far from us and that it's providing, the act of the bowl is providing to water to someone else. And just the conversation about community that we just had. I was a little surprised that it's easy to let the discomfort,
Become the focus.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and letting go of the discomfort, expecting the discomfort, and embracing it.
That's a slightly more challenging mudra.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else feedback or comments?
Definitely an invitation if you're coming in. But yeah, I agree. I like the idea that it's not just for you. You can share it.
Yeah, I like to add that point after you put some work in, you know, because we can kind of, I don't know if it's rationalize or not, but um, balance out the difficulty of having done the work with the idea that I'm going to get something out of this, and then to say, oh, this is like something I'm doing for somebody else. And, you may have that hummingbird to your left. It's halfway through the green that you're looking at closest to you there. Yeah, it went towards the ironweed now. That's cool. Um, but, like people will have this experience, with a pet or a child or something where it's like, oh, like all of this work that I'm doing that's not for me, whether it's literally going to work and time clock or just laundry or whatever it might be, um, or grooming the dog or whatever. And it's just like that sort of selfless, all of this, and maybe it hurts or it's awkward, or it's a hard one to do or whatever, but it's like, well, the payoff isn't about me, it's about the offering. So I like that balance of that work, um, and the offering.
You really focused on the mother rain. I really like that, and it felt like it was in addition to passing it off to somebody else. It was the nourishing. Like it felt like whatever I was doing, it was like deep and nourishing.
Mm. That was like as soon as the class was, because she told me that right before, kind of when we're saying good morning, and that kind of, and then I did a class, and like as soon as everybody said goodbye, and then I was just like because it was still doing the mother rain, I was like, I want to kind of relate to this rain. I'll see what I can learn or experience, and so I was kind of having a similar like, oh, this is so great. Yeah,
Like my hands didn't bother me. It was sort of
yeah,
my
sort of
elbows were
the
like
back.
I tried to keep those, but
Mhm.
that was sitting there going full capacity.
I'll often, probably more often than not, do this walking as a practice, not sit in place, and maybe it's a bit easier to have the mobility in the back that way. Um, but one of the first times I practiced it was um, in in Arroyo, and had this great experience of being in this dry riverbed, but having this water practice. Like, so it was just kind of walking the river course. Um, so the bit that you were alluding to is a teaching from my teacher. Um, his term is the Guru's grace. And if you press him on it, you really won't get much more, because that's the term that describes his teaching or his experience. So maybe it's whatever you think that means, or maybe it's just something that sits next to that kind of phrase in your mind that works for you, that feels acceptable. I don't know. Um, but he talked about the Guru's grace, and particularly how people would say, um, I've been praying to your Guru and I still have a bad knee, or I still have my ex bothering me, or I don't know, whatever the things people have as their issues are. Or I went all the way to India and I went twice and I still haven't, let go of my ADD or my grief, or I don't know, whatever the stuff is. The basic idea is that people come up to that saying, you said this stuff works. I've done the stuff. I bought the book. I learned the chant. Where's my, you know, benefit? It's like, he's like, what am I selling it? I wasn't selling anything. But he said, you keep waiting for the guru's grace. Like, when am I going to get noticed and have somebody sort of anoint me with the miracle or the relief or the enlightenment or something along those lines? As if there's a time when it will happen, and you just have to be without sin or lucky or something, whatever it might be that they're thinking, for the guru to bestow the whatever, the grace. And uh, he said, the guru's grace is a light rain that is always falling everywhere. You just have to cup your hands, meaning do the work. You have to do something, right? But somebody walking around in the rain, I have nothing to drink. I have nothing to drink. Like, hey, like, you don't have to wait for the rain or go to where the rain is. You just have to do your practice, right? To net the benefit, I guess. It was like that simple. So, as Garrett pointed out, I always like come to that lesson, even though it was unrelated in my education. I was like, oh, I have a practice of cupping the hands. That's about water. That's the metaphor used. I'm in, So I always kind of mix them up when I teach them because they fit so well, but they were distinct teachings. Were you starting to add something, Darcy? And I talked over you
I just said I'm hearing a reoccurring theme.
of
Practice.
yeah.
In order to receive practice.
I think what I want to do is make T-shirts that say "student quote." I was wondering, dot dot dot, and then teacher interrupting practice.
Great.
You
Yeah.
know, it's like I don't need to hear your question, but this is the answer.
And then a second shirt slowly.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you pull the shirt up out of your pants slowly. You know. Yeah.
Number 42 in numerology. I don't know, I'm just guessing. Oh, I was gonna say. The answer to life, the universe, and everything. Yeah, oh, yeah, that's 42, but maybe why we're still confused is because
Do you remember what else he says in the book there? He says that that's the answer, but the question is currently being computed by the Earth. Yeah, it's still going. 7.5 million years of computation is what I think he says in the book. Yeah.
so good. Literally watch it, re-listen to it.
Yeah. Have you heard the radio plays? Or
No, I have it all on the audiobook.
oh, okay, yeah.
Listen,
Yeah, I've never heard. I don't know if I've heard that.
The audiobook's great.
Hmm.
I love the guys that narrate it.
Yeah. Oh, great. That's great. Yeah. Yeah, that was our Monday lesson was chapter 42. So we were in that world a little bit. Hmm. So let's give it another try. So should I talk you through it, or do you think you guys can rebuild it again? Okay. And does anybody need me to talk you through? Because I'm happy to. Left hand on top, right middle finger weaves, second middle finger touches. You can start to see the hole now because you know where you're going. And then you're just building up the rest with rounded index fingers, rounded thumbs.
It's amazingly firelight too, flame-like.
Oh, the shape. Yeah, a flame and a drop of water look very similar in profile, right? Right?
I never ever
Mm.
thought
Interesting, right? Yeah. One has surface tension, one has no surface. When you're ready, just invite you to massage the kidneys, or kidney if you like, or just the area. Doesn't have to be too distinct or specific. Remember that. Remember the word for that?
For this?
For the smell after the rain?
For the smell.
Petrichor. Yeah, you got it. Petrichor.
You guys may be friends since second grade, but Barbara and I are, giving me a massage here. Thank you.
Putting your friendship to shame.
Ha 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 ha.
Come on, let's try this out. Yeah, I got
Ah. So the kidneys are just the water elements. It's just kind of nice to, especially since we're sitting on the damp ground, help be warm, bring our mind there, just on our way out.
I found that mudra kind of grounded me.
Yeah. Like emotionally.
Emotionally, physically.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times when I'm meditating, I'm aware that my posture slips up.
Oh.
I feel like I can sit still easier. I don't know why.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm not the type of person who can sit still. But when I'm doing that, for some reason, and it's not like I'm concentrating on that. What's important? I don't know what it is, but it's kind of like
Mm. That's a pleasant outcome, I think. Pleasant outcome from it to feel grounded. Yeah. Did anybody else feel grounded? Would that might be a word that you'd use after doing it twice?
once you're there, you don't you're not pay attention to the other.
Hmm.
But it's kind of like
I had a question about
Yes, sir.
intention of like the other that you're doing this floor offering towards. When you practice this, do you find yourself holding like one person in your mind, the collective, everyone else and you? Can you just
I don't usually do the collective everybody. There's too many people I don't like
okay.
to cast the net that widely.
I'm glad you said it.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
No, I think more often than not, it's directed toward a person simply, and I think that probably has more to do with the idea that it's a cup full of water. It's not gallons of water that I can share with a group. So just fits better with the idea of a person.
Yeah.
Um, and if I'm thinking of more than one person in need, I might just kind of repeat the practice.
Uh,
For me, more likely, like I'll do it as like I said, a walking practice, and my practice will be like walking in the direction of them, right? And then what I'll do is I'll try and walk after the manner of water, so that the actual path is going to be the path that I imagine water might follow, um, which might not be true in the full course because it's not like they're always downhill, but the particulars of the topography I'm kind of paying attention to with my feet and just kind of think it would just shift here a bit and find its way here because the water has this finding the earth quality and then following the earth quality, right? So maybe that's part of that groundedness, and then, feeling it soak in as I go. So I kind of feel like my kind of sinuous walking path is part of that practice for me, and then, in Tai Chi, like, we have those two springs on the bottom of the feet in Chinese medicine, so I'm tuned into the upwelling of the water there as well as the mudra practice, you know. Um, but that's me. I think you could probably do it for all those people suffering from that thing, and that's my focus today. And I don't see why you couldn't. Yeah, it probably doesn't have to be as uh, perfect as analogies go, and that I'm only getting this much water. Like
maybe
it
you can
can,
get one drop each.
yeah, it could be a grander idea. I'm sure. I don't know. Yeah, it's really good water. Yeah, and yeah, so sometimes I'll do it, like with water, like that I've collected and around the world, and like start with actual water. But mostly it's, you know, whether it's raining or not, it's just my hands. I'm not bringing a prop to it, you know. You
Do you
know,
ever to
I thought it was a hummingbird, so maybe it is, but
kind
there's a movement behind T for a second. So, hmm
of
have you learned about burrowing owls? Yeah, that's exciting. That's exciting. Mm.
as in owls that
That
burrow?
that's where their nests are.
No kidding.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Because they run on the ground a lot more than they fly.
I'm gonna
Mm.
have to look this up later. That's so cool.
Mm.
One of my babies came to visit while Kristen was here.
Perfect.
You must know that cheeseburger.
How excellent.
Just fascinating. Look at him.
That's cool.
Were you going to ask or add?
Oh yeah, I was just curious. The lesson of like collecting the Guru's grace. When I hear that lesson, it, at least the way you tell it is, I want to be enlightened, yada yada. Like, why haven't I gotten the thing? Is well, you haven't collected it. And then
Right.
the practice that you have to accompany that lesson is collecting it, but for others. So, do you ever practice um, that concept of collecting, but with a different mudra, or just cupping your hands and it just being something for you?
No, I don't do much in the way of just for me in that regard. So no. And as I said, those are two lessons from two different traditions
Yeah,
at two different times. But to me, they just
have a cool.
whichever one I start with, if there's time, I'll probably share the other one because they just fit so well together for me. But um, you
There is
know,
something to the idea that helping others does help you.
Is helping you. Yeah.
hmm
And in actual studies, there was
hmm
one in England that found people who were living alone and they were depressed and they were taking a lot of medications and they were
get the pressure anymore, but by doing something with other people, for other people,
I feel like Kristen was saying something, weren't you, where you're like the practice of it, even though it was for others, you felt, I don't know if invigorated was your word, but you were feeling good about it. Yeah. Like the water has to touch your hands first. Like the grace has to touch your hands first before it goes to others. So that's kind of how I think of it.
maybe another part to that too, Garrett, like thinking of the journey and the destination.
Sure.
The cupping and the gathering is in itself the practice.
Like the process.
Not, in other words, not to cup and gather to give, but give.
Right. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
You know what I mean? I can't quite. Yeah.
That's what
That it's the cup. Yeah, there is grace is ubiquitous around us as the air, the mist in the air. Mm-hmm. It's the practice of staying centered, not for something else, but simply to collect, but then can be shared.
Hmm.
I felt like it was at the same time, like as it was collecting, it was pouring out, like as it got full. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had a similar experience.
That sounds really good. I mean, but that is kind of interesting about how if it's everywhere and you're collecting it, are you just concentrating it?
Mm-hmm.
Is it because everybody else is already getting it too?
Right. But it's also like uh, uh, bringing it into a functional form, right? Like if it rains, but you don't collect it with your uh, gutter thing or whatever, like you can't water your plants from it or something later, um, or just there's water there, but you like have to go there with a bucket and then filter it, or like you help it take a shape or form that it can offer that function, you know. Because if you're standing around in the mist, you can't get a drink, but you can't say there's not enough water to drink, right? And the bridge between the two is work. Right? But I suppose we can stretch the metaphor to death too, and like just poke holes in any metaphor if we go far enough. Um, how do you say sweet in Italian? Yeah. How do you say to do in Italian? Fare. And how do you say nothing? Dolce far niente. Have you heard that phrase? Yeah. So dolce far niente is a nice meditative practice. And we might translate it as the sweetness of idleness. Right? So it's this beautiful Italian phrase, probably from picturesque Italy. Not like a factory worker probably didn't come up with it, but what'd you do all day? Just strum the guitar and looked at the olive trees, you know, or sip the port wine with my feet in the shore, you know. So what I want to invite you guys to do, and this will become homework, is practice dolce far niente. Am I pronouncing it all right?
I think they say dolce. I don't know the correct.
I saw it spelled F-A-R, but
Yeah,
but I don't know if that's conjugated the best way or not. So how would you pronounce it? Dolce far. So you almost roll the R? I'm out. Forget it. I can't. Yeah, I just sprained my tongue.
Many years ago.
Yeah, can I still get in a Latin class? So the idea is not to do for a purpose, but to be more than to do in a pleasant and idle way. So it's unbusy, and it's also not. It's unbusy as in doing, but it's also not busy as in here's 6 props and 10 ideas if I'm going to lounge today. And it doesn't have to be all day. But it could just be stopping to sit on a rock to watch the frogs for a couple minutes, or pulling over to look at the clouds instead of just noticing them for a second, or having a little bit of a stroll beyond your mailbox for no reason. Couldn't tell you why. I'm not going somewhere. I'm not getting my steps in. I'm not going to look at the sunset. I'm just having a little walk. And so to do this meditatively is to do it mindfully. And to do it mindfully is not to rationalize it. Like, this is getting me out of the house so my kids come down, or this is getting a few steps in, it's exercise. It's not even practicing meditation. It's just being idle and opening yourself to that dolce, that sweetness of that. And it's probably a little interregnum anyway. It's probably not your whole weekend or your whole day because of life, But something that's needless and pleasant, say yes to that. But don't rationalize it, because then you're really kind of doing something else. It's just, yeah, I saw the hummingbird there. I'm going to go stand there for a minute. Maybe I'll see the hummingbird, maybe not. Maybe my dinner is a little cool, but fine. I don't need to think about what I'm achieving. I'm just being, and I'm being in pleasantness, right? So, can you be present and pleased without doing something or rationalizing that you did something when you weren't doing something? And for many of us, that's a very difficult thing. Okay, if I just say it's me recovering or digesting or resting my legs or clearing my mind, or those things all might happen, but if that's sort of your reason or rationale, right? We understand that reason precedes action, rationale follows it, right? So either one, reason or rationale, it's not quite what I think is meant by dolce far niente. It's like, hey, what are you doing there? Looking at the shape of the mountains? And then no follow up. Like, I need to justify anything. Just looking at the shape of the mountains or whatever, writing a tune. I don't know. So I think what's important about it is that sort of no reason, no rationale, no justification, no real explanation, but being present in the pleasantness of being. Maybe you're in the hammock, maybe you're walking, maybe you're going for a swim. I don't know what it is, cooking, whatever it might be. It's none of my business. That all makes sense for a little permission to loaf.
Most of your business in Italian is fatti fatti tuoi.
Fatti fatti tuoi.
Mind your own affairs.
Mind your own affairs. That's what you say if anybody asks, what are you doing over there? What are you getting accomplished over there? Fatti fatti noi? Toy. Toy. Fatti fatti toy. I haven't heard that. That's great. I like it. Any questions? Feel okay? Thank you. The catbirds really like this one. Were they in here? Yeah, they really do. Yeah, sorry, I would have given you guys that lesson a couple weeks ago, but Tina wasn't here.
That's what you've been waiting for. I forgot about that.
Would you press the stop there for me? Is there one I don't know, yesterday, the day before, in that bush?
By the way, that was a beautiful